Hi everybody, if you don't know me already, my name is Kaylee. I am a gut health nutrition coach, so I help people to overcome their chronic gut and digestive issues at the root using the principles of ancestral nutrition as well as some other holistic health principles. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about something that connects back to your gut, and that is hormonal health. So I'm going to be going over 10 tips to balance your hormones and your cycle naturally as a woman. So basically, if you have heavy, painful periods, if you have lots of cramping, if you have lots of PMS leading up to your period, so if you have very sore breasts, if you have sore nipples, if you have just mood swings, if you get very bloated when you start your period, if you're skipping periods, or if you haven't had your period in a very long time, if you have amenorrhea, or if your periods are super irregular, some are short, some are long, they kind of seem like they're all over the place. If you are not ovulating when you're having your cycle, or skipping ovulations, or if you're having difficulty getting pregnant, or basically if you're having any kind of hormonal issues like that, that is a clear sign of hormonal imbalances. And I am going to be sharing in this video how to naturally balance your hormones and overcome those symptoms. Basically, if you're watching this, you probably know, but I'm going to go over it anyways. The pill will not balance your hormones. It will only kind of put a band-aid on the whole thing for a while. It will not get to the root cause of your issues. I'm going to be talking about how to get to the root cause of your issues and overcome these things naturally. But before I get too far into this video, I do want to let you guys know that I just created a new free training that's available exclusively inside my Facebook group, and it is on how to chart your menstrual cycle and what you can tell about your health from charting your cycle. So how you can tell at what points in your cycle you are the most fertile, how you can tell if you ovulated, how you can tell if your progesterone is high or low, if your estrogen is high or low, how you can tell just lots of different things about your health from tracking your cycle. So if that's something you're interested in, be sure to go down below into the description after you watch this video and click the link to join my Facebook group, and then you can get access to that free training and all the other free trainings that are kind of like videos just like this. So basically extra YouTube videos are in my Facebook group, and they're only there. So if you want to get access to those, just join my group. But anyway, back to this video. So I'm going to be covering a few things. I'm going to be covering what do balanced hormones and a healthy cycle look like. I'm also going to be going over what causes hormone imbalances and also cycle irregularities. And then I'm going to be talking about why the pill will not fix this. And then I'm going to tell you what will, and that's going to be those 10 tips to balance your hormones and cycle. So first, let's talk about what a balanced hormones look like. If we want to get somewhere, we first have to define what that is. So I would say that balanced hormones are going to look like this. Having a strong libido, especially during your fertile phase. If you want to learn what your fertile phase is, watch that Facebook training and you'll know super well how to figure out when that is. And then very minimal to no PMS. So I think if you get a tiny bit and it's not really uncomfortable, you know, our body is going through different changes. That's not a big red flag if you get a little bit. It's a problem when they get uncomfortable and they hinder our day-to-day life. But yeah, so having very little to no PMS symptoms is a sign of balanced hormones. Also having regular cycles, so having your cycle every time, not skipping cycles, and having them be a normal length. This varies for everybody, but typically it's kind of between that 25 to 35 day range. You might fall a little below or a little above that, you know, that can still be normal. People are different, but usually it's going to be around that 25 to 35 days. And then having a bright red period that is free of clumps. If you get a few small clumps on occasion, not a huge deal, but you should not be getting large clumps on a regular basis. And then having a period that lasts roughly 3 to 6 days. There is a variety of normal here, but basically if it's like 2 days, that's not the best sign. And if it's like 10 days, that's not a good sign either. So, you know, you might have 7 days and it could still be normal, but roughly 3 to 6 days. And then having a kind of like medium flow, it will often lighten up at the end, and that's totally normal. But essentially, if you have a very, very light flow, that can be a poor sign. And if you have a very, very heavy flow, that's also a poor sign. So a heavy flow is going to mean more like estrogen dominance, very bad hormonal imbalances. And then, so like too much estrogen and probably not enough progesterone if you have a lot of estrogen. And then if you have a very light flow, sometimes that can mean that you're just low in both hormones. And you might be a little nutrient deficient. I'll get into kind of those two main sides more in this video. But let's see. So then another sign of balanced hormones in a healthy cycle is that you can conceive if you are trying in that fertile window. So you have to be trying at the right time, and obviously your husband or boyfriend has to be healthy and fertile as well. But if he's healthy and fertile and you guys are trying during that fertile window, then you should be able to conceive relatively easily, you know, not necessarily the first time, but if you've been trying for a while, that's a sign that something could be off. Let's see. And then no to very little pain during ovulation. So it's kind of normal to get a little bit of cramps for some women. They're called Mittelschmerz, which is German for middle pain because it's the middle of your cycle. So if you get a little bit of cramping when you're ovulating, or also if you get a little bit of cramping on your period, that's fine. That's not a big deal. But if you're getting like painful cramping or debilitating cramping in either of those, that's a big sign of hormone imbalance. So then also another sign of good hormonal health is having good cervical fluid buildup to ovulation, which I talk more about that in that training video. But short version is women will produce more and more cervical fluid leading up to ovulation to help keep sperm alive and help increase the chances of conceiving. So then let's see. Okay, so this one might sound a little weird, but having a slightly curvier body type is also a good sign. Now this can vary a lot. Obviously, some people are naturally a little bit more thinner. Some people are naturally a little bit larger, but, and then there's healthy too. But basically holding your fat in a way that is a little bit curvier is a very good sign of hormonal health. If your fat goes straight to your stomach, that can be a sign of estrogen dominance. So that's what I mean here. Basically, if you hold fat in your stomach easiest, that's a sign that we want to flush out some of those estrogens and really support progesterone production, which I'll get into later, to balance your hormones. And yeah, so that's a clear sign. Also, if you are super, super thin, you might not have enough body fat to be having a healthy period. Also, if you are overweight, that can also negatively impact your hormones. Our body fat percentage and estrogen are very clearly linked. So if we have more body fat, we will make more estrogen. If we have more estrogen, we will hold on to more body fat. That's the reason, or one of the reasons, that women have more body fat naturally than men, is because we have more estrogen. But this can go too far. We can have too much estrogen and then too much body fat, or we can have too little and not enough. So we want that nice healthy medium of a healthy weight. Yeah, so that, let's see. That's what a balanced cycle is going to look like, in balanced hormones. And I just want to emphasize, when I'm talking about balanced hormones, I mean enough estrogen and progesterone, not too much, but the right amounts, and they're in balance. That's what I'm talking about. There are lots of other hormones, but those are kind of the big two players. There are other important ones, but anyway, like, that's what I'm talking about here. And the most common imbalance is going to be estrogen dominance and not enough progesterone. It's not that common to see it the other way around, especially nowadays, but that's the one I'm going to be going over more. So what causes your hormones to go off whack? What causes your cycle to go crazy and painful and all that kind of stuff? So there are a few. A huge one is nutrient deficiency. So our reproductive cycle is the last priority of our body to get nourished, or one of the last. Basically, our body prioritizes giving nutrients to the systems that keep us alive. Our heart will get calcium before our bones will get calcium. If we're super deficient, our body will take calcium from our bones to give it to our heart so we can still have heart contractions and have our blood flowing. It's more important to have that than strong bones. Obviously, we want both. So we want to get enough calcium and all the other nutrients. There's so many that you need for both of those systems. But essentially we want enough to nourish everything. So if we have really healthy hormones and a really healthy cycle, that's a sign that everything else is getting nourished too. Same thing with our hair. So if we have strong, healthy hair, we're not losing a lot of hair, it's growing long. If you decide to grow it long, basically if you're having trouble growing it long, that's a sign of nutrient deficiency. So if we have healthy hair, if we have healthy nails, if we have healthy skin, if we have a healthy cycle, this is a really good sign that we're nourishing everything, because our body has enough nutrients for all those things that now it's even nourishing the least important, which is like our hair, or how are we going to support a whole nother life in our body if we can't support our own? So that's kind of another reason that our body will shut off reproduction function first if we're not getting enough nutrients. So it's really, really important to get all your nutrients in. I'll go over that more a little bit later in the video, but I just want you to know that not getting enough nutrients is a huge cause for hormonal imbalance. We also need nutrients to make specific hormones. So that's another way it can get all off whack. Okay, so then too low or too high of body fat. I kind of already touched on this. Basically, if you're very skinny, if you have very low body fat, it could be actually causing low estrogen and throwing off your cycle in that sense. Yeah, basically you might be a little bit more malnourished. You might be a little bit more stressed if you're on the skinnier side as well. I've been there. I'm going to talk about my journey with that in a second. But yeah, so that is one reason you can be having hormonal issues. And most likely when you're too skinny, you're going to be not having a cycle or skipping cycles or having very light periods. And then if you're overweight, you can get estrogen dominance. And you can also have a lot of issues with your cycle. You can have decreased fertility as well. So then estrogen dominance is another cause, which has its own causes. So basically, there's a lot of synthetic estrogens nowadays. You've probably heard them called xenoestrogens or phytoestrogens. So phytoestrogens, the phyto is for plants, you know. So basically this is going to be things like soy. It is in other things like wheat and like flax seeds and like peppermint and some things like that in smaller amounts, sesame seeds as well. But the big one is soy. So I would really avoid soy. Yeah, I would just really avoid soy. It is not good for you for so many reasons. It's very high in lots of other anti-nutrients, but it really does interfere with your estrogen and your hormone balance. So that's one thing. Also, so xenoestrogens encompasses those phytoestrogens, and it also encompasses non-plant things that still have estrogen mimicking molecules in them that interfere with our hormone balance. So this is going to be things like plastic, or like phthalates, or a lot of things like fragrance, so like perfumes or candles, like not very natural candles. Some cleaning products, beauty products are just full of endocrine disrupting compounds that can really mess things up. So it's really good to get your just health products, your beauty products, your cleaning products, all those things really clean so that you're avoiding that. And then also if we're not detoxing efficiently, so if you are constipated, if you have sluggish bile flow, things kind of like that, if you're not having a heavy enough period, then you're not getting rid of toxins efficiently, and then you can be holding on to some of those excess estrogens that we want to get rid of. So that's another cause. Stress is another cause. So basically, if we are really stressed, we are going to be producing a lot of cortisol, and our resources, especially our cholesterol, is going to be going towards making lots of cortisol. Then our sex hormones like estrogen and progesterone are going to be put on the back burner, and we're not going to be making as much of them. So then we can get low hormones because we're so stressed and we're making so much cortisol all the time. When we're stressed, we can also burn through a lot of nutrients much faster. So you can have nutrient deficiencies, and stress can negatively impact your gut. And I'm going to go over how that connects in a second. But yeah, so stress can be physical. So a lot of times, if you're like an extreme athlete, you can typically lose your period from the physical stress. Also, it can be emotional stress as well. It's going to have a similar effect on your body. So then the last cause I have is gut issues, of course, because that's my specialty and that's what I talk about all the time. But basically, if you have poor gut health, like if you have leaky gut, you're going to get a lot more toxins flowing into your body. If you have constipation, you're not eliminating toxins, so you got more toxins going on. If you have poor digestive health, you're not going to be absorbing nutrients well. There are so many ways it connects. Gut health also connects more directly in hormone production. So poor gut health can lead to poor hormone production as well. So there's a lot of ways it connects, but that's just a few to touch on. So those are the main root causes. You'll probably notice you likely have multiple of them. That's very common. You might have one, but yeah, it's hopefully easy to tell which ones are causing your issues. If you are confused at all, you know, you can drop a comment or something. I'm happy to help you. But anyway, I wanted to touch briefly on my experience with this. So I had what's called amenorrhea, which basically just means you don't have your period. I think there might be a few more criteria, like a length of time that you don't have it or something. But essentially, when I was, how old was I? 14. I lost my period. So I'd already had it for like 2 years. But then I stopped having it and it didn't come, and months went by and I kept looking up on my phone, like, why haven't I had my period in 5 months? And then it was like, why haven't I had my period in 7 months? Then it was like, why haven't I had my period in a year, 2 years? And eventually, for 2.5 years, I never had my period. And I was vegan at the time. At the first, I was vegetarian, but like getting pretty close to vegan. I lost some weight. I lost about, let's see, 14 pounds over the course of a few months. I was really skinny. I was the same height I am now, 5'6", and I was 115 pounds. I'm about 150 now. I do lift weights now. I didn't before, so I have more muscle. But anyway, I was very skinny for me. I was totally nutrient deficient. I was not getting enough nutrients. I was eating like vegetables and fruit all the time and some like rice and nuts, and that was like my diet. It was very nutrient deficient, and pretty much I just didn't get my period that entire time. And I was pretty stressed too. But also, eventually what happened was my stepmom told me, like, I think that you should probably eat some animal products. I think it'd be really good for you. And I talk about this more on my video about veganism and vegetarianism and my experience with that and why I decided to leave that. So you can check that out if you're interested. But basically, I decided to start eating animal products again. And 1 month later, I got my period back. So I really believe I was deficient in cholesterol, because you can make cholesterol, but you don't always make enough if you're not eating it. And we tend to function better when we're actually eating cholesterol, and then our body will make less and it balances out. But essentially, I really believe I was deficient in cholesterol and a lot of other nutrients, because that's one of the biggest things that makes our sex hormones, and I was having no cholesterol in my diet. Then I started eating animal products again, and I was like, I want pancakes, I want lasagna, I want enchiladas. I had a really fun time. I love cooking, and I made a lot of things with a lot of dairy. Anyways, a month later, I got my period back, and it's been regular pretty much ever since. I think I missed like 2 or 3 since then. So it's been a really long time. And another funny thing is it was exactly 2.5 years to the day that I got it back. So I thought that was pretty funny. But anyways, so that's one example of difficulty with periods, and that was my experience with it. But now I want to touch on why the pill won't fix your issues, and then I'm gonna go into the 10 things you can do to actually fix this naturally. So I just want to touch on this because I get on calls with people a lot who are interested in working with me, and I hear this story over and over again that they had this problem, whatever it was, they went to the doctor gave them a pill, and then it made their problem so much worse. Or their doctor had some surgery where they cut out some organ. They're always cutting out organs. Gallbladder is a really common one to get cut out. And then they have all these problems. And of course, not all doctors are like this. I'm not saying that at all, but there are a lot of doctors that just prescribe a lot of pills, and it's not always their fault. It's the way it's set up, and I just see it so often. So now you get girls that are like 14, like myself, going into the doctors, and they just want to put you on the pill, and they say it's going to regulate your hormones. But the thing is, it won't regulate your hormones. It will make your symptoms go away, most likely for a little bit, but it'll probably give you other symptoms. Like, a lot of people gain weight on the pill, their moods go kind of out of whack. There's a lot of like health consequences to it, and it really throws off your hormones. You're putting synthetic estrogen into your body and progesterone. It can really lead to estrogen dominance. What else? It can do so much. You can look it up online if you want. There's so much info out there about the negative effects of the pill. It's carcinogenic, it causes cancer, but essentially what it's doing is it's making a false cycle for you. So you are having this pill that has these certain hormones, and then you're taking that break to have a period. It's really just a pill bleed, I've heard it called, which I think is more effective, because this hormones you're taking essentially shuts off ovulation, so you're not ovulating. So is it really like a true period when you're just taking a break to bleed a little bit? It's just very strange, and a lot of women can have trouble getting their bodies to ovulate again after they've been on the pill, especially if it's been for like years. So then that can lead to difficulty getting pregnant. It can take years to get your cycle back. So this is just not a good fix, and there are so many alternatives. So the pill's probably the worst. It usually has the highest doses of hormones, but ideally it's best to avoid all forms of hormonal birth control. None of them are good for you. If you are taking a very low dose progesterone one, yes, that's better than the pill, but it's still not great for you. I get that there's different situations. You have to figure out what's going to work well for you, but just keep that in mind. So then, oh, and if you want a non-hormonal form of birth control, then I'd recommend the fertility awareness method. And I talk basically about how to do this in that free training down below, but a really good resource for this is the book Taking Charge of Your Fertility by Tony Weschler. So I'll link that book down below if you're interested in learning more about how to basically avoid getting pregnant naturally by tracking your cycle and knowing when you're fertile and just abstaining from sex in your fertile phase. So if you're interested in that, I'll link that book below, or you can check out the free training too. So yeah, so basically I just wanted to touch on that won't fix things. So here's what will. Basically, you want to, kind of figure out which one of those root causes I mentioned before is causing your hormonal issues. And then you want to address that one, but I'm also just going to give you 10 overall things to do, which cover that and then a little bit more. So first of all, you want to eat enough. Now, everyone's going to be different, but if you are struggling more on the light periods, skipped periods, not having a period for a while, you really want to make sure you're eating enough. A lot of women won't eat enough. I was this way. If I pack a salad for lunch at school with like lettuce, nuts, and dressing, that's all I'll eat. And then I'd be like starving when I got home. Don't do that. It's miserable. It doesn't really help you at all. It's really important to eat enough good food. It will help strengthen your metabolism. It will help your fertility. It will only do wonderful things. You're not just going to accidentally gain a lot of fat by eating enough food. Your body will give you signals. If you're eating real food, it's not going to happen overnight. If you're accidentally gaining a little extra weight, you will get the signal beforehand. You will notice, you can change. Like, don't be afraid to eat enough food. It is so important for your health. So then eat enough cholesterol is really important too. There was that whole big thing about how everyone's scared of animal fats and how they'll clog your arteries and they'll give you heart attacks and they'll make you fat or whatever, but that is not true. I have shared a lot about that. A lot of other people have as well. But the biggest thing I think to think about here is we as a species have been eating animal fats for hundreds of thousands of years. The Eskimos ate about 70% saturated fat. That's the estimates just based off what they were eating, like seal blubber and like all these different animals out there. So it just doesn't make sense that that would all of a sudden cause these issues. There's so much more I could say about that, but I don't want to make this too long. But basically, I just want to encourage you to eat enough cholesterol, which you're going to find in animal fat. So that's going to be butter, lard, tallow, steaks, milk, dairy, anything like that, eggs. These are so nourishing for your body, and they will really, really help your hormonal health. Of course, you want to get good quality. If you're getting poor quality, that's not as great. You know, grass-fed, hormone-free, antibiotic-free, all that good stuff, pasture-raised, raw milk if you can. Any of that is better. But yeah, just be aware these are really, really important foods. And also avoid seed oils. Don't fall for that like canola oil is heart healthy kind of thing. Those are the real problem with heart disease and all that kind of stuff. And again, I won't get into that now. There's tons of info online. I have articles on my website about that. But essentially make sure you're really avoiding those seed oils and just replace them with butter and lard and tallow, and you'll be so much healthier. So then number 3 is to avoid hormonal birth control, which I feel like I touched on really well already. So gonna kind of skip over that one a little bit, but yeah, you want to avoid that. So then, oh, and also if you have already been on hormonal birth control and are wanting to get off or have gotten off and are kind of rebalancing your body, all of these tips will help you to rebalance your body. Your body does want to get back to its healthy state. You are not doomed if you've been on it before. Basically, you can rebalance your body most of the time. It should be fine. It's just that it has consequences, and it's just not ideal to go down that path in the first place. But if you already have, you know, don't worry too much. Just, you can implement these strategies now, and they will help you to rebalance your hormones and help you to regain your health. So anyway, number 4 is to avoid xenoestrogens. Like I was talking about before. So basically avoid plastic, avoid fragrance, avoid like phthalates, like any of these kinds of endocrine disrupting compounds. You can look up a list if you want something super detailed, but basically, like I said, candles, perfumes, cleaning products, lots of makeups and different beauty products are full of these. It's terrible. And avoid soy, plastic as best as you can. Like receipts, things like that is where you're going to find them. You don't have to be like perfect about it. I still have food that touches plastic. It's almost impossible not to. If you can find a way to not, then I applaud you for that. That's amazing. And I would love to get there, but you know, just don't worry about being 100% perfect. Just in general, avoid these things. And then also you might have heard of the Ray Peat carrot salad. That is a great way to just encourage some of these xenoestrogens to come out. Basically, raw carrots have a fiber in them that binds to xenoestrogens that are in our gut. So it binds to them and helps pull them out through our bowel movements. So that is a great way, or you can just have a raw carrot. I usually opt for just having like half a raw carrot with my lunch. That is a great way to pull out some of those xenoestrogens. You can also do cooked mushrooms, like very cooked mushrooms. They have a similar fiber in them as well that helps to get rid of those xenoestrogens. Number 5, decrease stress. I talk about this in so many videos. I need to make one that just goes more in depth about it. But, you know, manage stress, figure out what your biggest sources of stress are in your life, and figure out what you can do about it. Some of these you might be able to cut out. Some of them you might be able to shift your mindset around it so that you don't stress yourself out going into these situations. Some things you might be able to make more long-term plans to get rid of them, or you might be able to incorporate de-stressing practices to do right after these stressful events. Like, for example, if your job is very stressful, maybe you can either quit your job and get a new job, or you could change the way you approach going to work, and that's going to involve some personal things there of figuring out exactly your situation. But, you know, maybe you could just focus on not dreading it so much or finding positives in it. Maybe you can focus on a game plan to switch into something else in the future. Or maybe you can just come home and take a nice bath or read or something to relax after. So managing stress, decreasing stress is kind of a big thing to tackle sometimes, but those are just a few main tips to kind of get you started on thinking about some things that you could do to help with that. So then balance your blood sugar. So this is really important, especially for making sure you have enough progesterone. So because we're so prone to having too much estrogen, progesterone can kind of take the back burner in hormone production, and we can end up with low progesterone. So by balancing our blood sugar, this can help. By decreasing stress, this can help. By flushing out xenoestrogens, that can help as well. But basically what I mean by this is pairing protein, carbs, and fats together at all of your meals. If you are not 100% perfect, the world will not end. But basically do your best to always have your carbs with a protein or a fat, and it will prevent your blood sugar from spiking and then crashing and spiking and crashing. So that's just kind of a short little answer for that one. And then number 7 is get sun. Getting sun as much as you can, pretty much. I mean, not too much that you burn, but just getting outside, looking outside in the morning, watching the sunset, anything like that is really, really helpful for regulating your cycle. So it regulates your circadian rhythm. Your circadian rhythm affects your cycle. Women that are outside more under the sun, their cycles tend to be more regular, and they tend to sync with the moon as well. So everyone's a little different. For example, my cycles are slightly shorter than the moon cycle, so I have a hard time staying perfectly synced with it, but every once in a while, like right now, I'm synced with it. So maybe if I spent more time outside, it would sync more. It's hard to say, but basically spending time outside will affect your cycles. And what I mean by synced is traditionally it's estimated that basically women used to sync more so that they would bleed with the new moon and ovulate with the full moon. I have seen some info saying that women switch back and forth, and sometimes they're bleeding on the new moon, sometimes they're bleeding on the full moon and ovulating on the other one. Yeah, so I'm not positive about all of that, but it definitely has an impact on regulating our cycle. So that's where that can be really helpful. And then getting adequate nutrients. Of course, I'm going to talk about this one. We really need to be getting plenty of nutrients. Think about it. Our cycle, our hormones are part of our reproductive system. So basically we have to be getting enough nutrients for us, and our body wants to know we have enough nutrients to support another life in us as well if we are to become pregnant. So even if that's not your goal, that's biologically your body's goal if you are of menstruating age. So keeping that in mind, just having plenty of nutrients is going to really help regulate your hormones and your cycle. So I talk about this a lot, but nose to tail animal foods is one of the best things. So organ meats, bone broths, muscle meats, eggs, dairy, seafood, anything like that is going to be super, super nutrient rich. If you want something very specific towards your hormonal health, then animal reproductive organs, the female ones, are actually really helpful. This might sound totally bizarre, but stick with me for a second. Basically, there's an ancestral principle that like heals like, and what this means is the animal reproductive organs, the female ones, are good for our female reproductive organs. And the reason for this is they are rich in the nutrients. They are storing the same nutrients that our reproductive organs use. So you probably aren't going to find these in the grocery store. I have not found these in the grocery store. I've been tempted to ask, but felt a little too weird, so I did not. But anyway, you can buy these in supplements, so like ancestral supplements, or I think Heart and Soil might have one too. So you can buy them in like supplement form before, and I've taken those, and that's very nice as well. But totally optional. So then number 9 is to drink a cycle balancing tea. So this is going to be herbs that help to balance your cycle. They have a more mild effect. Herbs tend to work that way a little bit more, or it depends on the herbs. I'm not going to say that some are stronger and some are more mild, but this tea is a little bit more mild. It's more about kind of having it over the long run that can help. It's especially great to drink when you are having your period, but you can drink it at any point in your cycle. So basically you make a tea of, you can just do red raspberry leaf if you want, or you can make it a little bit fancier and do what I like to do, which is red raspberry leaf, or you can also use blackberry leaf as well. And then you combine it with borage, nettles, dandelion roots, and dandelion leaves, and a little bit of rosemary. So the other ones equal parts, and then just a tiny bit of rosemary in there as well. So that's very nice to drink. And then number 10 is to detox. And I talk about this a lot. So you might have heard me say this before, but I do not mean some fad juice detox cleanse that would totally go against eating enough cholesterol and getting all your nutrients in. So by detoxing, I essentially mean having regular bowel movements, making sure that your bile is flowing well in your liver, making sure that your lymphatic system is flowing well. It's really about supporting your body's natural detox systems. And our menstrual cycle is one of our detox systems. For women, when we are bleeding, we are actually getting rid of some toxins as well. And we are getting rid of excess iron as well, which is really good. So, yeah. Those are the 10 tips that I have for you. I will recap them very quickly. So that was eat enough, eat cholesterol, avoid hormonal birth control, avoid xenoestrogens, decrease stress, balance blood sugar, get sun, get adequate nutrients, drink cycle balancing tea, and to detox. So those are my main tips for balancing your hormones, having healthy cycles, and just overcoming any of those like PMS symptoms. Your cycles will just get more enjoyable, and the more you learn about them, the more exciting it is. What I teach in that Facebook training that I mentioned earlier about how to chart your menstrual cycle and what you can tell about it, when I learned the stuff that I'm sharing in that video, I thought it was so fascinating that there are so many things we can tune into and look at, and by doing that, know about our health. And it just kind of opened up my world that our menstrual cycle is so much more than just our periods as women. So if you want to learn about that, again, go check out that link below. You can join my Facebook group and you can watch it there. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it helpful. If you're still here, thank you for sticking around till the end. Yeah, if you enjoyed it, go ahead and give it a like, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos on gut health, on ancestral nutrition, more holistic healing kind of things. Yeah, you can comment, share it with a friend, anything like that. I really appreciate. Yeah, so thank you again. I hope you found this video helpful.